The stars were calm. The human hospital ship, Mercy's Light, drifted silently through the endless black. It was not a warship, not a vessel of soldiers or guns, but a ship of hope. Inside were the wounded from many battles, young and old, men and women, all trying to survive. Doctors moved quickly from bed to bed. Nurses carried supplies. Children whispered softly to one another. The ship was a moving sanctuary, a reminder that even in war, humanity still tried to heal. The captain of the ship stood on the bridge, tired but proud. She knew her duty was not to fight, but to protect lives. Every corridor of the ship echoed with beeping machines, quiet prayers, and the soft voices of those who still believed in tomorrow. The galaxy was cruel, but this ship was meant to be different. It carried no weapons, no soldiers, only mercy, and because of this, it should have been safe. But the silence of space began to change. The sensors on the bridge picked up something unusual. At first it was only a faint signal, like static. Then it grew stronger, louder, closer. The crew leaned forward in confusion, their hands moving quickly over glowing controls. One of them whispered, "It can't be. There shouldn't be ships here." The captain narrowed her eyes, her heart tightening. The stars shifted, and out of the void came shadows. At first they looked like broken rocks drifting in space, but soon the truth became clear. Warships, alien warships, fast and cruel, sliding silently into view. The hospital ship had no defenses, no shields for war, no cannons for protection. The crew froze, their blood turning cold. The aliens had not come by mistake. They had come with purpose. Their ship spread out, circling the hospital vessel like wolves around a wounded deer. Every window of the hospital ship reflected the glow of alien engines. Inside, patients began to stir as alarms screamed through the corridors. Doctors tried to calm them, but their own hands shook. The captain shouted orders to seal doors, to protect the medical bays. But deep down, she knew there was no way to fight. They were a target, and the predators had found them. The first blast came without warning. A beam of light struck the hull, tearing metal apart as if it were paper. The ship rocked violently. Beds crashed to the floor. Patients screamed in pain. A second blast followed, then a third. The peaceful sanctuary turned into chaos. Children cried for their parents. Nurses shielded the wounded with their own bodies. The lights flickered. The walls shook. Smoke filled the air. The human hospital ship was dying. But the attack was strange. The aliens did not destroy the ship completely. Instead, they struck in careful places, forcing the humans to panic but leaving parts of the ship intact. They were not here just to kill. They were searching for something. Boarding pods slammed against the hull, metal claws biting deep. Dark corridors filled with hissing gas, and heavy footsteps echoed through the air. The aliens entered, tall and armored, their weapons glowing in the smoke. They moved without hesitation, dragging humans from hiding places, tearing through the sick and the wounded. Fear spread like fire. Why would anyone attack a hospital ship? And then, unseen by most, another figure watched, not on the bridge, not among the crew, but far away, hidden behind secret systems. A man with sharp eyes and a calm face. He was no captain, no soldier, but something different. He watched the attack like a chess master studies the board. Every scream, every explosion, every move of the aliens played out before him as if he had planned it. He leaned back in his chair, his voice cold as he whispered, "They took the bait." No one on the hospital ship knew his name. No one understood that the attack was not random. The Mastermind had expected this. The Mastermind had wanted this. To the dying humans, it felt like tragedy, but to him, it was the first step of a much larger game. Back on the bridge, the captain fought to stay in control. Her voice broke as she ordered a distress signal. "All channels, this is Mercy's Light. We are under attack. We are a hospital ship. We carry no weapons. Repeat, we are a hospital ship." But the aliens ignored her words. They had no mercy. They came closer, dragging away survivors, destroying what they did not need. Some of the crew tried to resist, But they were cut down quickly. The wounded cried out, begging for help that would not come. The stars outside remained silent, indifferent. The humans were alone, and still, the Mastermind watched. His eyes glowed in the dim light of his hidden chamber. He did not smile, he did not frown. To him, life and death were only pieces on a board. He let the attack unfold, because only through this chaos could the truth be revealed. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity was not weak, not fragile. This was only the beginning. The Mastermind whispered again, his words soft but sharp. Let them believe they have won. The hospital ship screamed in the night of space. The aliens thought they had victory. The humans thought they had lost hope. But in the shadows, a deadly plan was already moving. A plan that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The hospital ship Mercy's Light drifted like a wounded bird in the endless dark. Smoke rose from broken corridors. Alarms screamed through every deck, and the smell of fire filled the recycled air. Doctors tried to save the injured even as walls collapsed around them. Children clung to their parents, and nurses carried patients on their backs. But the nightmare had only begun. The aliens had arrived. Their ship stayed close, glowing like predators circling their prey. Boarding pods slammed into the hull, shaking the vessel like thunder. The humans screamed as metal claws cut open sealed. Corridors, the walls groaned and split, and shadow stepped through the smoke. The intruders were tall and armored, their bodies covered in dark plating, their eyes burning with cold light. They carried weapons that hissed and sparked, energy rifles designed not just to kill but to terrify. Every movement was precise, as if they had rehearsed this invasion 1,000 times. They did not hesitate, they did not show mercy. The first wave cut down anyone who resisted. A medic tried to block the doorway to protect his patients, and he was burned alive in a single shot. A mother screamed for her child, but both were dragged away. The hospital ship became a hunting ground on the bridge. The captain ordered the crew to seal off sections of the ship, lock the bulkheads, protect the medical wards. She shouted, her voice cracking, but the aliens moved too quickly. They knew exactly where to go. They weren't looking for food, or treasure, or even prisoners. They were looking for something hidden. The crew began to whisper a single name, a name that felt more dangerous than the aliens themselves, the Mastermind. No one knew where he was, or what his true purpose might be. But the attack felt too perfect, too calculated. The humans realized that this was not chaos. This was design. In the lower decks, survivors huddled together, their whispers trembling in the dark. They are not killing everyone. One of them said. They are searching, another voice added. But what could they want on a hospital ship? The answer never came. The walls burst open again, and armored shadows stormed inside. Screams filled the air, but among the survivors was a young nurse who noticed something strange. The aliens avoided certain rooms, bypassing sealed medical bays. It was as if they already knew what was inside. They weren't searching blindly, they had a target, the Mastermind. Watching from his hidden place, leaned forward in the dark. His eyes tracked every alien step, every human scream. This was the moment he had prepared for. The attack was not an accident, it was bait. The aliens thought they were hunting, but in truth, they were being drawn deeper into his trap. The captain refused to give up. Her voice cracked but still carried strength. All hands, fight with whatever you can. Defend the patients, she cried. Crew members grabbed tools, pipes, even broken metal, and tried to resist. Some fought bravely, others died quickly. Every corridor became a battlefield of smoke, fire, and blood. The humans were outmatched, but they fought anyway, not for victory, but for dignity. Not to win, but to prove that even in despair, humanity did not bow. But the aliens were merciless. They dragged survivors in chains, they crushed resistance under heavy boots. The wounded begged for mercy, but the intruders only laughed in their alien tongues. One soldier raised a rifle and burned an entire ward. The cries of the dying echoed through the metal halls. The hospital ship shook like a living creature in pain. And then, through the chaos, a strange sound spread. The ship's internal comms came alive. A voice, calm and steady, cut through the screams. It was not the captain. Not the crew, it was him, the mastermind. Do not resist further. The voice said, cold as steel. The attack is part of a larger design. His words froze the humans and even made the aliens pause. The mastermind's voice carried no fear. Only certainty. You came here believing this ship was weak, he told the aliens. But every step you take, every door you break, you only move deeper into my trap. The humans listened in shock. The aliens snarled but hesitated. How did this man know their moves so well? How could he speak with such confidence while the ship burned? The mastermind continued. You want something hidden, he said, and you think I will let you take it. But you are wrong. The bridge crew stared at one another in fear and confusion. Was he protecting them, or had he sacrificed them? No one knew. The mastermind was not like a general or a soldier. He was something different, something darker. He did not fight battles with guns. He fought with knowledge, with secrets, with control. In the shadows of the burning ship, the aliens pushed forward. But now doubt crept into their steps. The mastermind's words echoed in their helmets. Had they truly walked into a trap? Still, their orders were clear. They pressed on, tearing open more doors, seizing more survivors. But the humans whispered among themselves. Maybe, just maybe, this attack was not the end. Maybe the mastermind had planned something they could not yet see. As the hospital ship burned, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The invaders believed they were breaking humanity. The survivors believed they were doomed. But in truth, both sides were being played. The mastermind whispered to himself again, his voice cold and steady. Good, let them go deeper. Let them believe they are in control. And in that moment, the fate of the galaxy began to shift. The ship Mercy's Light was no longer a sanctuary. It was a battlefield of smoke, broken metal, and the cries of the wounded. The aliens thought. They had won. Their claws dug deep into the heart of the hospital ship. But they did not see the hidden eyes that watched them from afar. They did not feel the cold mind that had already calculated their every move. The mastermind sat in silence, surrounded by screens that flickered with data. To him, the attack was not a tragedy, it was a puzzle. Every scream, every blast, every step of the aliens was a piece on his board. He leaned back, calm as a storm waiting to strike. This was not the end of humanity. This was the opening move of his game. He was not a general, not a soldier, not even a leader by title, but across the stars, those who knew his name whispered it with fear. They called him the strategist, the ghost in the wires, the man who wins without fighting. To humans, he was a protector. To aliens, he was a curse, and to himself, he was something greater. He was the architect of survival. The hospital ship had been chosen carefully. It was not just a vessel of mercy, it was bait. He had allowed the aliens to strike it. He had let them believe they were clever, strong, unstoppable. But the truth was different. The truth was that every action they took inside the ship led them deeper into his trap. The mastermind's voice returned to the comms, cold and sharp. You think you came here to take something from humanity, he said. But it is humanity. That is taking something from you. The alien snarled, ignoring the voice, pressing deeper into the wounded vessel. But the soldiers began to feel uneasy. Why did he sound so certain? Why did it feel like he had expected everything? The mastermind's plan was not about brute force. He knew humans could not match alien empires with warships or numbers. But he also knew a truth the aliens never understood, that war was not only fought with weapons, war was fought with information, war was fought with psychology, and war was fought with the human will to survive. He had studied the enemy for years. He knew their weaknesses, their rivalries, their pride. He knew that the empire behind these attackers was built on fear. Not loyalty, and fear, he understood, could be turned against itself. He began to send hidden signals through the ship's broken systems, not to humans, but to the aliens themselves. Encrypted messages slipped into their helmets, false commands, whispered lies. Some soldiers heard orders that their leaders had betrayed them. Others received signals suggesting their allies had failed. Doubt spread like poison. Meanwhile, the surviving humans began to notice patterns. Doors that should have been sealed were opening at the right time. Lights that had been broken flickered to guide them down safer corridors. The mastermind was moving them like pieces, not only saving lives, but arranging them for the next stage of his plan. The captain, still standing on the bridge, heard his voice again. "Do not fight blindly," he told her. "Protect the survivors. Hold your strength. The true battle is not here." She wanted to scream, to demand answers. But deep in her heart, she understood. He was not abandoning them. He was shaping something greater. The aliens pressed deeper. Frustrated by resistance, they dragged humans. In chains, they burned through locked doors. But the further they moved, the more the ship itself seemed to fight them. Systems malfunctioned. Doors slammed shut. Alarms deafened them. Their confidence began to fade. What kind of prey fights? Back with shadows and whispers? The mastermind leaned forward, his eyes glowing with the light of screens. "This is not about the ship," he whispered. "This is about the empire that sent them." He knew the truth. The attackers were not independent. They were servants. And their masters were watching from afar, waiting for results. But soon, those masters would see failure, and failure would spread cracks through their empire, like fire through dry wood. The humans did not yet see the whole design. To them, the mastermind was still a mystery. But slowly they began to feel something they had lost: hope. If this man could outthink the aliens, if he could turn their strength against them, then maybe humanity was not doomed. Maybe humanity still had a chance. The mastermind continued to whisper through the coms. "To survive, you must endure," he told the humans. "To endure, you must resist not with weapons, but with unity." His words carried through the ship like a hidden shield, and for the first time since the attack began, the humans stopped. Trembling, they began to resist not just with desperation, but with purpose. The aliens, however, grew more desperate. They tore through rooms, but what they searched for remained hidden. The mastermind had made sure of that. They thought they were in control, but in truth, every step, every action, every scream was predicted. They were not hunters, they were prey, and they did not even realize it yet. The galaxy was vast and cruel. Empires rose and fell with fire and blood. But in that moment, in the burning wreckage of a single human ship, the balance of power began to shift. Not through weapons, not through armies, but through the mind of one man. A man who could change the fate of stars with nothing more than his plan. And as the Mercy's light shook under alien fire, the mastermind whispered once more, "This is only the beginning." The alien soldiers spread like a storm through the broken hospital ship. Their claws tore open doors, their weapons burned walls, and their boots crushed the weak. But beneath their armor, cracks of fear were beginning to show. The mastermind's whispers had already poisoned their minds. False orders echoed in there. Helmets, shadows of betrayal followed their steps, and for the first time, the invaders began to doubt. The humans did not understand everything, but they felt it. The chaos was not random, it was guided. The mastermind was still with them. Unseen but powerful. And though the ship burned, hope flickered like a candle in the dark. The captain stood on the bridge, her uniform torn, blood staining her face. She watched her crew fight against impossible odds, and she wondered, was the mastermind truly their ally, or just another predator? But before she could question further, a new sound shook the air. Not the heavy boots of soldiers, not the screaming of alarms, but the deep thunder of warships arriving. Through the cracked windows of the bridge, the stars lit up. More alien. Ships emerged from the void, larger, darker, their hulls carved with the symbols of empire. The captain's heart sank. This was no simple raid. This was something greater, something darker. The empire itself was watching. The mastermind knew. It too His screens showed the new arrivals, their fleets aligned in perfect formation. He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "So the masters finally reveal themselves," he whispered. The attackers on the hospital ship were not acting alone, they were only puppets, and the hand that controlled them had just entered the stage. The rising threat was no single battle. It was a campaign to break humanity's spirit. The Empire wanted to crush not only soldiers, but healers, children, and hope itself. By striking a hospital ship, they meant to show the galaxy that even mercy would die before their power. But the Mastermind had prepared for this moment. This was why he had let the attack happen. This was why he had stayed hidden until now, in the lower decks. Survivors whispered in fear as new explosions shook. "The ship. They are bringing more warships," one man said, his voice trembling. Another answered, "Why would they send so much power against us? We are nothing." But the young nurse who had seen the aliens avoid certain rooms shook her head. "No, we are not nothing," she said softly. "They want something here, something they fear." The Mastermind's voice came again, calm but sharp. "They believe humanity can be broken," he told them. "They believe fear will silence us, but fear is a weapon that cuts both ways." His words carried through the coms, steadying human hearts even as alien soldiers marched. "Closer, remember this," he said. "Empires built on fear are always weaker than they seem." The new alien fleet moved into position. Their commanders sent signals, demanding reports from the soldiers inside the ship. But already the Mastermind's interference spread through their networks. False data reached the commanders, reports of betrayal, whispers of rebellion. Some fleets began to question their orders. Others wondered if their rivals were plotting against them. Seeds of doubt grew, small but deadly. The humans could not see the whole picture, but they could feel a shift in the air. The invaders fought harder now, but also with more desperation. They killed more savagely, but their eyes darted nervously. The Mastermind had turned their certainty into fear, and fear was the one enemy no empire could control. The captain held her ground on the bridge, her voice hoarse but strong. "To all survivors, keep resisting, hold the lines," she commanded. Her crew obeyed, patching systems, guiding civilians, fighting in corridors. Every moment they survived felt impossible, but somehow they endured, and behind it all, the Mastermind's hidden hand shaped the storm. He was already thinking ahead. The Empire believed they were breaking humanity, but he was breaking the Empire. He understood their pride, their arrogance, their hunger for control, and he knew that pride could be turned into paranoia. Soon, they would not trust their own fleets. Soon, they would not trust their own commanders. And when that trust was gone, their power would collapse from within. The aliens on the ship pushed deeper, their commanders demanding results. But still they found nothing of what they were searching for. The Mastermind had hidden it too well. Every corridor they opened led them into another dead end. Every system they hacked turned against them. They grew angrier, more reckless, and in their fury, they made mistakes. The humans, though weak, began to notice. They fought back in sudden bursts, striking when the aliens stumbled. A wounded soldier threw himself at an invader. Buying time for children to escape, a nurse lit fire to spilled fuel. Trapping an enemy squad in flames, every act of resistance carried a spark of defiance, and every spark fed the Mastermind's greater fire. The galaxy outside remained silent, watching from afar. Other races saw the attack on the hospital ship and shivered. If the Empire could destroy mercy itself, who could resist them? But whispers spread too. Whispers that the humans were not as weak as they appeared. Whispers that a hidden mind was fighting back with something stronger than guns. The Mastermind leaned back once more. The plan was moving. The trap was tightening. And though the hospital ship burned, its sacrifice was not wasted. The Empire believed they were teaching humanity fear, but in truth, humanity was teaching the Empire something far more dangerous. That even the strongest rulers could fall. That even the mightiest fleets could be broken. That the will to survive was a weapon sharper than any blade. The rising threat was not the Empire's fleet. The rising threat was humanity itself, and the Mastermind knew it. He whispered into the shadows of his chamber, "Good, let them come. Let them show their full strength. For the greater their pride, the greater their fall will be." The hospital ship Mercy's light still burned. Its halls were filled with smoke, its walls broken and bleeding air. The alien soldiers marched deeper, believing victory was near, but in the shadows, something unexpected began to grow: human resistance. At first it was small. A doctor shielding his patients with nothing but a broken chair. A nurse guiding children through maintenance tunnels, whispering that help would come. A wounded soldier, refusing to give up his post, even as blood stained his uniform. These were not warriors. These were ordinary people, but they began to fight anyway. The Mastermind's voice whispered through hidden coms. "Do not fight for glory. Do not fight for revenge," he said. "Fight for survival. Fight for one another." His words were simple, but they carried weight. And in the hearts of the survivors, something ancient stirred: the will of humanity. The captain on the bridge held her ground. She had lost many of her crew, but her voice remained strong. To all survivors, she commanded, "Hold the lines, protect the civilians." Her crew obeyed, patching systems with scraps, turning broken consoles into traps. Every hallway became a battlefield of resistance. Every room became a fortress. The aliens laughed at first. They had numbers, weapons, armor. They saw humans as weak prey. But their laughter faded when the prey began to strike back. A group of nurses overloaded a power conduit, blasting an enemy squad with fire. Wounded men and women threw debris from the upper decks, crushing invaders below. Even children carried messages, guiding survivors safely through the chaos. The hospital ship had become a hive of defiance. The Mastermind guided them like pieces on a board. He opened doors when they needed escape. He sealed corridors to trap alien squads. He sent false signals into the enemy's helmets. Some aliens turned against each other, convinced their comrades were traitors. Others hesitated, unsure if their orders were true. Confusion spread like smoke, and in that confusion, humans struck. Young nurse who had noticed the enemy's strange behavior became a leader among survivors. Her voice carried courage even when her body shook with fear. She told the others, "We cannot let them take everything. We must stand." Her words spread, and people listened. For in times of despair, even a single brave voice can ignite many. In one ward, the wounded armed themselves with tools, syringes, and broken pipes. When the aliens stormed in, expecting easy kills, they were met with fire and fury. The humans fought like cornered animals, and though many fell, the invaders did not walk away unscathed. For the first time, alien blood stained the floors of the hospital ship. The captain received reports of resistance. At first, she feared the survivors would be slaughtered, but then she realized something greater was happening. The humans were not dying silently. They were fighting loudly, and every scream, every strike, every act of defiance echoed across the ship. The message was clear: humanity would not bow. The Mastermind watched with sharp eyes. This was exactly what he had planned. Not just survival, but resistance. Not just resistance, but a symbol. The survivors of Mercy's light were no longer victims. They were proof that even in the darkest hour, humanity's spirit burned brighter than fear. The Empire had wanted to crush hope, but instead, they had created it. The more they tried to kill, the stronger the resistance grew. The more they tried to silence, the louder humanity's defiance became. It was a mistake the Mastermind had counted on. And it was a mistake that would haunt the Empire. The alien commanders grew restless. Reports from inside the ship were unclear. Some squads stopped responding, others sent panic signals, and still, the objective they searched for remained hidden. They had sent an armada to break humanity, but humanity was breaking them instead. In the galaxy beyond, whispers began to spread. News of the attack leaked through hidden channels. Other races heard of the human struggle. And though many were afraid of the Empire, they could not ignore what they heard. A hospital ship, unarmed, standing against warships, ordinary people, fighting back against impossible odds. It was a story too powerful to remain silent, and it began to spread like wildfire. The Mastermind smiled faintly in the shadows. Not a smile of joy, but of calculation. This was how wars were truly won, not only with fleets and cannons, but with stories, with symbols, with the hearts of those who refused to kneel, the survivors. Of Mercy's light were becoming more than victims. They were becoming legend. Inside the burning halls, humans fought on. Every corridor dripped with smoke and blood. Every victory was small, every loss heavy, but still they resisted, still they struck back, and with each act of defiance, the Empire's grip loosened. The Mastermind whispered once more. "This is what they fear most," he said. "Not our ships, not our weapons, but our spirit. They can burn our bodies, but they cannot burn our will." And so the humans of Mercy's light fought, not as soldiers, but as symbols, not as warriors, but as survivors. And in their struggle, a fire was born, a fire that would spread beyond the stars, a fire that would one day bring empires to their knees. Humanity had struck back, and the galaxy would never forget it. The ship Mercy's light was nearly torn apart. Its halls were filled with fire. Its walls groaned like a dying beast. Alien soldiers pushed deeper, desperate to finish their mission. But even as the ship collapsed, humanity still resisted. Every corridor was a trap, every survivor a spark of defiance. And behind it all, the Mastermind waited. He had studied the Empire for years. He knew their pride, their hunger, their arrogance. And he had prepared for this moment, the turning point, the place where their power would unravel. The aliens believed they had cornered the humans. They reported back to their fleet, claiming victory was near. But the Mastermind had already seeded doubt among them. False commands whispered in their helmets, messages suggesting betrayal, data that twisted truth into lies. And the Empire's soldiers, once united, now looked at each other with suspicion. On the bridge, the captain clung to her console. The screen showed fire across every deck. She whispered, "We cannot last much longer." But then his voice came again, calm and sharp. "You do not need to last forever," he said. "You only need to last until the trap closes." The captain frowned, her heart heavy with both fear and hope. "What trap?" she asked, but the Mastermind did not answer directly. He never explained everything. He only gave enough to keep them moving, enough to keep them alive. The alien fleet outside prepared for the final blow. Their largest ships aligned their weapons. They wanted to destroy the hospital ship completely, to leave nothing behind but wreckage. But the Mastermind had counted on this. He had let them believe they were winning. He had made them hungry for total victory, and in their hunger, they were blind. The survivors fought on. In the lower decks, the young nurse rallied the wounded. She guided them through tunnels lit only by sparks, her voice steady even as fear clawed at her. "We are not finished," she told them. "We still have strength, and as long as we breathe, we fight." Her words lit a fire in tired hearts, and they marched forward, carrying hope like a shield. The aliens followed, but their steps faltered. Doors sealed in their faces. Alarms screamed false alerts. Some squads received commands that others had betrayed them. They turned on one another in confusion. Blades clashed against blades, rifles fired into friendly armor. The Mastermind watched it all. He had planted the seeds. Now the Empire's soldiers watered them with their own paranoia. The turning point drew closer. The Mastermind whispered into the comms once more. "Do not fear their strength, for their strength is also their weakness. They believe numbers will protect them, but numbers only make them blind." Survivors listened, their fears slowly turning into determination. And even the captain, weary and broken, began to believe outside. The alien fleet fired their cannons. Beams of fire tore through the stars, but the shots missed, striking their own allies. The Mastermind had altered their targeting data. What they thought were enemy signals were their own ships. The void filled with sudden betrayal, alien ships blasting one another into pieces. Confusion spread like wildfire through the fleet. Commanders screamed into comms, but no one trusted them. Every voice sounded like a trick. Every order felt like a lie. The Empire's greatest strength had become its weakness. Their power was now their chaos, and the Mastermind knew the moment had come. On the bridge, the captain saw the alien fleet tearing itself apart. Her eyes widened in disbelief. What is happening?" she whispered. The Mastermind's voice answered, low and calm. "They are breaking themselves. Fear is the sharpest weapon." The survivors roared in sudden courage. They struck back harder. Every alien they killed carried more meaning. Every step they reclaimed from the invaders felt like victory. The humans were not just surviving anymore. They were turning the tide. The young nurse led her group into a destroyed ward. She picked up a fallen alien weapon. Her hands shook, but she raised it anyway. "This is our ship," she said, her voice fierce, "and we will not surrender it." The wounded rallied behind her, and together they struck down another squad. Alien blood mixed with human blood across the broken floors. But for the first time, the humans pushed forward. The Mastermind leaned back in his chair, his eyes glowing with satisfaction. The turning point had arrived. The Empire had revealed its pride, and that pride had become its downfall. The humans had revealed their will, and that will had become their weapon. The galaxy beyond watched in silence. Whispers spread from system to system. The hospital ship that should have been an easy kill had become a battlefield of legend, and the Empire that should have been feared now looked clumsy, broken, afraid. The story of Mercy's light was no longer tragedy. It was transformation. As the fires burned, the Mastermind whispered one final time. "Now they see," he said. "Now they understand what it means to challenge humanity. They thought they could crush us with fear, but it is their fear that will destroy them." And in that moment, the galaxy shifted. The war was no longer the same. Humanity had endured. Humanity had struck back. And humanity had reached the turning point. The battle around Mercy's light was ending. The alien fleet that had come to destroy humanity's spirit was now tearing itself apart. Warships drifted in flames, broken by betrayal and fear. The once proud invaders now screamed into dead comms, unsure of who to trust. And deep inside the shattered hospital ship, the survivors stood among smoke and blood. Tired, wounded, but alive, the Mastermind watched it all from his hidden chamber. His screens showed chaos across the stars. Ships exploding, commanders arguing, soldiers fighting one another. It was exactly as he had planned. The trap had closed. The Empire had walked straight into it, and humanity had turned despair into victory. The captain on the bridge leaned against her console, her hands trembling. She could barely believe her eyes. A hospital ship, broken and weak, had survived an armada, not because of weapons, not because of numbers, but because of something greater. "Will unity and the mind of one man," she whispered into the comms. "This is Mercy's light. We still stand." Her voice carried through the survivors, and for the first time since the attack began, they cheered. It was not the cheer of triumph, but of defiance, the cheer of a people who refused to vanish. The young nurse stood with the wounded, her hands stained with blood. She had seen horrors she would never forget, but she had also seen something else, human courage. She whispered to the children hiding beside her, "Remember this day. Remember that we fought back." And the children nodded, their eyes shining with something new, not fear but pride. The Mastermind let the voices of survivors echo in his ears. He did not smile, but his eyes burned with sharp light. This was the proof he had needed. The Empire believed humanity could be broken, but instead, humanity had become stronger. And now the galaxy would know it. He opened a secure channel, not only to humans, but to every race listening in the shadows. His voice spread across hidden frequencies, across systems and sectors. "I am the one you call the Mastermind," he said. "You have seen what happens when you strike at humanity's mercy. You have seen what happens when you try to break our spirit. You fail. His words carried weight. Across the galaxy, species who had watched in silence now listened closely. Some had feared the Empire too much to resist, but now they saw cracks in its armor. They saw humans rise from ashes, and they began to wonder if they too could fight. The Mastermind's voice did not shout. It did not beg. It was calm, steady, like a blade pressed to the throat of the galaxy. Attack us again, he said, and your own empires will collapse from within. Your strength will turn into your weakness. Your fear will eat you alive. Remember Mercy's light. And know this: humanity does not die. The survivors wept, not only for their losses, but for their survival. Every scar, every scream, every death had become part of something greater. They were no longer just victims of an attack. They were symbols of resistance, symbols that would live on long after the fires died. The alien fleets that remained retreated, not in triumph, but in shame. They had failed to crush the humans. Worse, they had revealed their own fragility to the galaxy. And though the Empire would still claim power, it would never be feared in the same way again. The captain looked to the stars, her face weary but proud. We were supposed to be a hospital ship, she whispered. But now we are something else. She did not know the future. She did not know what wars would come. But she knew humanity had crossed a line. They had proven they were more than prey. They were survivors, strategists, fighters of a different kind. The young nurse carried a wounded child in her arms. As she walked through the ruined halls, she felt a strange strength in her heart. She was no soldier, but she had stood against monsters, and she had not fallen. Her eyes met those of the survivors around her, and she knew they all carried the same fire, the fire of defiance. The Mastermind sat in silence once more. The stars outside burned with wreckage and ash, but in his mind, the game had only just begun. The Empire would return, stronger and angrier. Other enemies would rise from the shadows, but he was ready, because he had seen what humanity could become when pushed to the edge. He whispered to himself, the galaxy has changed. They will never look at us the same way again. And with that, he closed his screens. The chamber fell dark, but his presence did not fade. Like a ghost, he remained in the wires, in the shadows, in the silence of space. Watching, waiting, planning. The galaxy would never know peace again, not because of the Empire, but because of the mind that had turned fear into a weapon. The mind that had shown the stars that humanity would never bow. And so the story of Mercy's light became legend. A tale carried on whispers, retold by survivors, spread across worlds. The story of a hospital ship that should have died, but instead lit a fire that would burn across the galaxy. The fate of the galaxy had shifted, because one man had turned tragedy into strategy, and humanity had turned despair into defiance. The Mastermind whispered one last time into the void, "This is only the beginning."